Back to my channel, guys. So today I want to talk about how a lot of players in the 80s and 90s believe that today's game is soft. It's not hard. It's pretty easy to score. The defense is lacking, and they're more skilled, but the game is a lot easier, and a lot of older players would dominate this era. So let's break this down a little bit. Just think about the comment, I think a year ago that Kevin Garnett made that if he played today and other players from his time in the early 2000s, it wasn't like it was that long ago. He said it would be difficult for them to translate. He said something about how out of breath they would be just trying to run up and down with these guys. So I know a lot of players believe that the game today is pretty soft. It's not something that's difficult. Anybody could play in this era. They're not playing hard. They could play longer things just like that. So let's sit here and let's break this down from a basketball standpoint. All right, let's pick a player out the 80s and 90s, a good big man like Patrick Ewing, top 10 center of all time, dominate, 7 foot, big guy. Will he dominate today offensively? Yes, if you dump the ball down to him, I believe he would. He would dominate. I don't really think it'll be a problem, but it's more than just what he is going to do on the offensive end. All right, so take him. Look at Patrick Ewing as a guard. He's not a guard. He's a big man. So there's not really much we could say about him being a guard type player. But the big men today, they're moving like guards. They're shooting like guards. They're moving side to side, pick and rolls. This game is went towards a different element than it was before. So a guy like Patrick Ewing having to close out on threes, moving his feet side to side, picking them guards, you can see how he might not be able to sit there for 35 minutes and play in the post because he will be kind of exhausted. So look at Patrick Ewing and just put him on the floor. He was a good mid-range shooter, but he has to stretch out. He has to stretch the floor. So I don't know if Patrick Ewing will be as dominant in this game because he will have to move like a guard, and that will be more injuries. All right, let's look at another player. Let's look at Dikembe Mutombo. He was I think he's a first ballot Hall of Fame. He was pretty good. He's defensive. He's defensive excellence. So put him in the game. Limited offensively. Not sure if he can move with other big men. I know he would try to stay back, but these guys could shoot today. These guys could shoot. They're gonna shoot the lights out if you constantly leave these guys open. Let's take another center. Let's do let's do Kareem. Kareem's the greatest scorer of all time until LeBron passed him. He went down, shot his sky hook, and he went up and down the court. All right, Kareem's most people consider the best center of all time, him and Wilt. So he ran up and down on a straight line, got in the post, did his thing. You're not running in a straight line today. You're moving your feet. You're not hand checking. You're not fouling. It's going to be a lot different for those post players, back to the basket players, to dominate because they could score. Yes, they could score, but it's more than just playing offense. There's defense, and there's this fatigue factor that most people don't relate. Like Kevin Garnett himself, who can actually play today. Who could actually play today? Like he could move like a guard. He did. You watch him in the USA Olympics practice. He's moving like a guard, moving his feet, stopping players. Kevin Garnett could play. Look at Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan had to go to center later in his career, half of his career, because of how the game was transitioning away from power forwards being back to the basket players as well. It just went to centers, and now there's very limited. Even Joel Embiid, who could dominate in a post, he cannot always just sit in the post. He has to spread the floor. The game is different today. Guys like David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, I believe they would translate better. A younger Shaq would translate better. But running that up, straight and down, vertical running is just not going to work today. You have to be out. You have to move your feet like a guard. This game is different. It is not like what most people believe it to be, as soft as they believe it is. There were more fouls called in the 80s and 90s than it is today. And people think there's a lot of fouls called today. Yes, the 90s got a lot of foul calls. And no, the 90s did not just tackle people. There was flagrant fouls. They eliminated that in the 90s. In the 80s, they knew that they were not really playing defense. They were just trying to hurt people to stop them from scoring. So that's Jordan took off when he was actually able to just to play basketball. He wasn't there just to hopefully I don't get clothesline today. So once he was able to actually just play basketball, he dominated it. He won 6 titles in 8 years, 6 titles in 7 years actually, because one year he sat out. But then again, like I said, the defenses today is not as weak as they wanted to think. I know guys like Giannis, Jokic, and Luka was saying how easy it is to score into today's game. No, not in today's game, but in the NBA than in international play. So I could understand that a little bit because in international there's more of a team concept. And then in the NBA, these guys are so skilled that they could do so many different things. And, if that was the case, they would be constantly winning titles. So it's not really as easy as they think. Once it comes playoff time, things are different. In the regular season, they let you do whoop de whoop what you want. But as soon as the playoff time come, look at Harden. He flamed out in the playoffs every year because he's exhausted trying to do it in the playoffs. Luka, and he's been killing, but this is his first time winning the playoff series. So it's not as easy. It's easy to score, but there's more things than just scoring. Yes, Giannis won a title. He won a title when, the best two teams were injured. Brooklyn and the Lakers were injured. And if they were healthy, he probably wouldn't have won that title. If Brooklyn had James Harden and Kyrie, most likely a healthy Harden as well, most likely would not have been winning titles. So to say the game is as easy because it's easy to score, no, I believe it's easier to score for these talented players, and because the spacing is so good. The spacing is amazing. See, you look at a team like the Lakers with no shooters, they're not going to win too many games. When you space the floor, you have to have shooters. I don't know what's going on with LA. They have a team with LeBron and Westbrook and no shooters. So that's just another story for a different day. But getting back to how the players today are not soft, the game is not easy, it's not weak. They're just more skilled. More skilled. They played a different style of play in the 90s and early 2000s. The early 2000s even scored lower than the 90s. There was a lot of 70 to 80 games they were scoring lower than in the 90s, which was a very slow pace. So as you can see that the talent level picked up. The talent level picked up, the skill picked up. I know they want to say they changed the rules for more players to score and this and that. No, they really got down to the analytics, saw what works, and they implemented their game just like that. And that's why today is different for a lot of teams. It's just not too many 2 to 3 star teams anymore. There are teams who could play basketball like in an international game. There are teams who could spread the floor and shoot. And just thinking that the game is soft and not good, that's just doing a misjustice to what the NBA is, which is the most talented, sporting in the world. Really, they're the most talented players.